Welcome to FitFam. Do we have plastics in our body and why do I care?
Oh, good one. Good one. Welcome, everyone, to the Fit Fam podcast. This is Miss Natural Olympia Hilary.
And this guy right here is Doug the Formulator.
And if you listen or watch us, please click the subscribe button, especially on YouTube, where we try to put this out the most. We love to have you subscribe and also hit the little bell so that when we have new episodes, it'll notify you. We're really excited about today because we've been talking about this subject, I think, since January with our doctors. Every time we meet with them, and it just starts growing and growing, and more data and information, and what it's doing to the system. And so I'm glad we're going to like nail it today, talk about it.
Me too.
And I like your opening with, why do we care if we
Why
do
do
have
we
plastics
care?
in the body? So we're
Yeah.
going to hit all that up.
Okay.
So the problem.
Okay. So
What-
let's talk about it.
All right. So plastics are in our body. And I think that's kind of the first place. Is that true? Is it true that we have plastic buildup in our body? And, there's some really interesting uh, studies out. And what I think is cool is usually when people do studies, they're really boring, right? And you have to dissect it and dissect it. And then you try to find some way through a story or something to explain anything exciting about the study. Well, there are some research study focused universities around, and they're kind of catching on. And so, as they're doing the research, they're actually coming up with their own analogies and stories to explain, what we're finding out from the study. And one of them, out of the University of New Mexico, not too far
Was
from
that
us,
this?
was really cool. And why don't you explain that?
I actually can't explain it. I don't really know. All I know is the visual of the spoon on the head because they found out that there was this amount of plastic in the brain.
Yeah. And basically, like in whose brain? Looking at the data across the United States, that the average American, so basically every American has, on average, this amount of plastic in their brain, which tells us we know it's not just in the system, but it's getting to vital
Yeah.
organs in the body. And that was a crazy study that came, Dr. Campen, and phenomenal, showing that that's there.
Yeah, huge study. And we were having this conversation just a minute ago. It's like, okay, so you're consuming plastics, but the body gets rid of it. Well, the body can and wants to, but also it's starting to settle. And
So that's
to
how
have,
that one's really cool, because it's like in the brain.
yeah, and to have plastic settle in your brain, I I think when anytime we talk about the brain or the heart, I think all of our ears perk up a little bit, right?
Absolutely.
Because they feel like pretty vital organs that we want as healthy as possible.
Time.
So, what is the problem if I
Well,
have a spoon in my brain?
Well, I think first of all, it's like the first problem is if I have that much plastic material in the brain, how much am I consuming? And that's where the other study comes in that's, pretty well known out there today. And it's like we know on average how much plastic we're consuming per week in the United States. And we're talking about through our food, through our water, and that's eating not the absolute worst diet, right? It's a diet that does have processed foods in a typical American diet, but actually not terrible, because I thought, oh, it's just that, people eat
Yeah.
absolutely just plastic food, right? And no, it's not the case. So how much are we consuming weekly?
What'd you tell me? 4 of these a week?
So no, 5 grams, which is one credit card a week.
Credit card a week.
Yep. So you were consuming a credit card's worth of plastic.
So
5
in a
grams.
month, we're talking about over 4 of these.
Yep.
That is a wild thought, actually.
Yeah. And so, like when we were talking about it, you're like, wait, you're telling me that I consume, 52 credit cards amount size of plastic a year? Absolutely. And we know that it's not just in the bloodstream, that it's in the organs. Right now, we know it's at least a spoonful size amount in the brain, and still working on the data. And this is such new science as far as trying to figure out how much, and there weren't a lot of tests to even measure this. But the liver, the kidneys and stuff. But the bottom line is, it doesn't really matter when we figure that out. Like, I want to know, but it really doesn't matter. We know that we're ingesting it. Absolutely. We know that it's settling in organs. absolutely. That as a major factor. But then some people still say, so what? Like, okay, so I have plastic in my body.
Yeah, why do I care?
Why do I care?
What kind of havoc is having plastics in your body wreaking?
That's that's a big question, and within the last 3 years, that question's been answered in a huge way, and we're talking about major studies, and, the one that I like reading the most was a study out of Italy that was in 2023, and they took, 250-ish patients, and they found that after surgery, they saw the amount of plastics that were in their system, right? And they were able to measure that in the bloodstream and measure the amount of plastics. And then they said, okay, does the amount of plastics affect the outcome of the surgery and of the
Mm,
patient's health? Like,
okay.
really, is it a factor?
Yeah.
And it wasn't only a factor, it blew their minds. What they found was that the increase of inability to heal from surgery went up
Mm.
dramatically on the amount of plastics.
So the
Um,
more plastics you have in your body, the harder it is for you to recover from surgery.
yep. And
Wow.
then they found that the complications from whether from the surgeries and that really came down to the amount of plastics, whether people died, earlier versus later, what came down to the amount of plastics. In other words, more plastics in the system, the sooner they died. Even let's say you have two surgeries and they both went well, like, uh, bypass, single bypass, surgery, whatever it might be, quadruple. They took those parameters, and then just the difference really came down to the plastics, and it was a huge factor. And it was so big that they're like, wait, this is affecting people's lifespan, and we can prove it. And the amount of plastic in the body is determining at this study, like not to know if they got sick or had heart disease or issues, but definitely the outcome from them.
Hmm.
The amount of plastics, and so that was a huge study, and I think that the plaque buildup and all that we're finding out now from another study that we have more plaque buildup if there's plastics in the system that is binding with some of the other plaque builders, that are clogging the arteries. So, is it the so what question? It's a big one. And I think we're learning from the blood work that we've seen over the last 2 decades with like endocrine system stuff and
Mm,
everything.
like messing with our hormones a little bit, huh?
Yeah, a lot, I think. And we're noticing it with hormone balance, things that we've done before to help balance testosterone or estrogen with men and women. Men as they get older, women is just, that balance at different times of their life that is a normal balance change, right? From teenager to then being, the body preparing for a baby to then preparing to no more babies to, later on in life, the full menopause thing that,
I feel like I feel like you're directing some speaking towards me.
well, I mean, you're at one of those no matter what, right? And the body was meant to be able to handle each of those phases, just go through them. And in
But even as you are going through them, regardless of your health, you are going to experience changes within your body, and it's going to be manifested in certain ways. For example, if you're going through menopause or perimenopause, some mood swings, some hot flashes,
Mhm.
things like that. So your body's going to experience those things regardless because there is a change happening within the
Right.
body. So the
Just like
goal
puberty,
is,
right? Like
right,
they
in
have
puberty,
acne or
yeah,
they have
exactly.
emotions and things like that.
So the goal is to keep the body as healthy as possible so that when we do, because I want to make it very clear that you are going to experience certain side effects, I don't know, symptoms when you are going through different changes in your life. And the goal is to go through those changes as smoothly as possible. We're all going to feel them. And but you're right, the body was meant to go through those different stages. So there are things that you are meant to experience, just like in life, we are meant to experience some pain, right?
Huh?
Because it's all about growth. So, but the goal is to make sure that our body can feel as good as it can as it's going through some hard things.
Right.
So,
Basically, not blow a fuse, but go through those changes and accept them for what they are, and still be able to function at the highest level possible, right? There's kids where they're going through puberty and like, okay, the best we're going to get out of this situation is X because they're going through
Yeah.
this stage. The same thing,
No, that's good.
people preparing for babies and things like that. And guys, it's not as dramatic of those changes, but they are there. The hormonal, cycle plays a role, but the reason it plays a bigger role with women is the determining factor more on the emotional side of it, from the standpoint of worry, anxiety, because it's a motherly thing, comes from estrogen. So it's a
Well,
higher factor with women.
yeah, because our bodies are capable of reproducing and all of the different emotions that go with that, right?
Absolutely. And I think that's why the plastic thing, in my opinion, is affecting women from the standpoint of
Mhm.
the hormones and that more than men. For men, it is affecting the testosterone in that, which will end up being overall performance. But usually what's happened with men is just slows their drive down for life, for everything. And
Mm.
and that with women, it actually makes it so that it can be all over the place more. So men is just slow. With women, it just hyper responds it.
So it almost kind of just hyper responds whatever reactions typically happen if things
Absolutely.
aren't
Yeah. So if you're lower in
steady.
testosterone, the men are more just depressed and want to lay around and like lazy. And you're like, I'm not a lazy person, but they're actually being lazy with their actions. And so I think that, and we know that too, also because other place that's been studied with plastics is that plastics are settling in the ovaries in women. Then we
Mm.
know that, and it's measured, and to a point where we can't find ovaries now without it, and the testes in men. Again, that they're not finding any testes that don't have plastics in them. So we know it's settling throughout the body. And when it does enter these organs, tissues, glands, it is affecting them. We call them endocrine disruptors. So I think the problem's real. We know the amount we're ingesting. We know the amount that's getting in the system. We know it's getting to the organs. This isn't even an arguable fact, right?
Right.
And then we also know the so what. The so what is huge. The damage that's being caused is a major factor. And so now it comes down to, okay, got it. What do I do?
Yeah. So before we move on to what do I do, because I'm excited that we have some answers here always. But also, I think we really need to hit so what a little bit harder.
Okay.
It's the whole concept of being able to function at your optimal capability. If for a man their testosterone is suffering and they're unable to find the drive and the push to do some of the things that they are meant to do, and for women their balance of testosterone and estrogen is just thrown off and they're feeling more chaotic within your own skin. And I think it's the same for men. You're feeling more chaotic in a different way. And so the fact that we are suffering with microplastics at that hormonal level, which are proper hormone function is just what makes us feel best,
Right.
right, is a huge problem, and we need to address it. And the fact that we have some answers is
It's really
really
cool.
great.
Yeah.
Should we start with the plastic test and share your number with plastic test when we first did it and my number? Do you think that's probably a good place to
That
start?
sounds like it's going to be no matter what. And I think that what's interesting as we get into the what do you do is right now, like if you went and Googled or, ChatGPT or Grok, whatever you're using, and said, okay, plastics, you'd find out that there are, in the system, pull up some of these studies we talked about, the University of New Mexico, all this stuff, right? The plastic amount of size of plastics in the brain, all that stuff will come up. But what will also come up is that there's not an answer. And there's even people out there that have access to some of the testing and that to measure plastics. And their answer at the bottom is like, well, just improve your lifestyle. Like, like there's no like, oh, what do you mean? Just like keep going, type thing. I got that I need to lower the amount of plastics in my life, but um, you know, that's tough.
And that is something to hit first of all. That's a great place to start, is lower the amount of plastics that are in your life. But we are surrounded by plastics. And I remember my brother and I having this conversation because he likes to poke me a little bit. If I'm ever choosing glass over plastic, he's like, "Yeah, but this, and he'll bring something out of the pantry, you know? But that's the point. It's like, just because you can't fix everything doesn't mean you don't do what you can do.
Right. And what you can do, does it improve the situation? Well, that's where plastic test comes in. And what, go ahead. And plastic test is a test that is one of a kind. It was developed in the lab out of the Netherlands. And right now, that's actually where the test goes when you take the test. And it comes back with an actual number. And we'll put up on the screen the actual results that come back that give you the understanding of the size of the plastics in your body. And there's 3 different sizes that we list it by, and the total amount. And so that's really important. But before we get to that, let's go ahead and talk about the test and what you would need to do the test. So if you
Okay.
order a plastic test, it's going to come to you in the mail, this little box. What's going to happen?
Okay. Here's all of these things. So plastic test, and I'm going to read this so that we get it exact. So 1, purchase the plastic test kit from optimalhealthsystems.com.
Absolutely. And
Okay.
if you have a health professional, go to them. They'll actually send it to you, your email or your phone by text through something called direct script. They actually prescribe it and send the link to you.
Number 2, when the test arrives, scan the QR code on demographics card and log into the OHS health portal to register your plastic test kit.
And so what's cool about that is we actually created this portal for everything from the plastic test to your blood work, whatever it is that you end up doing. But in this case, a plastic test, and you're going to scan the little QR code, and that QR code's going to take you to where you can register for free that portal to where your information is going to come to. And that's really, really important.
Okay. Number 3, read and follow the instructions for collecting a viable sample while using proper clean technique.
Here, let me show you the quick version using proper
And here's
technique.
the QR code.
If you read everything, at the end of the day, what's going to happen is you're going to go in and you're going to actually take the pokers, and this is the only part of the test that a lot of people feels maybe, I'll say negative, this tough. These are metal because, again, we can't use plastic. And the lab in the Netherlands doesn't have any plastic in it. Like, it's the coolest thing. It's all glass. And so you'll take this little poker and you'll poke your finger, and it doesn't feel great. It's like poke, boom, right? Got it. You know, being honest with you. And then you'll get some blood there. And when you get the blood, you actually have this little piece of paper that has 5 circles on it. And all you do.
Wait. 4, clean your finger with provided alcohol wipe. I knew he'd forget that. There it is. Prick your finger with the lancet. So what Doug is calling the poker is actually the lancet.
It's a metal lancet. Yeah, when you see lancet, most people think of the plastic ones you
Right.
poke like that. So
Yeah,
yes,
so you call it a poker because it's metal.
yeah.
It's a lancet. Okay. 6, fill up 1 circle
That's the biggest mistake
completely
people
with your
make.
blood. Just 1. So
So-
show that again.
So you're poking your finger and you have the 5 circles here. One of them you're going to feel completely. I don't even know why the other 5 aren't. Just keep going. Even if you have to repoke your finger or squeeze it, just keep going. You don't have like in one big drop. And that's why a lot of people, oh, it didn't happen. I need to try the next one. No, like you can take as many drops as you want, squeezing your finger, and feel one of them to where the blood hits the edge. And there, if it's not touching the edge on a couple little teeny places, don't worry about it. It's just trying to get the blood in one of these circles for the most part.
But the point is 1 circle.
One
You just
circle.
have to fill 1 circle. 7, set card out flat on clean area for 30 minutes to dry.
And this is a dry blood test. And so we don't want it to, actually go through and, get blood everywhere with it. And so you're just gonna let it set, let it dry.
Set. After 30 minutes, put the sample in the provided envelope. There we are.
Self-addressed stamped envelope.
And put it in the mail.
Oh, and stick it in the mail. That's
it. That's it. The next part is you have to wait patiently for 2 to 3 weeks for the results. Oh, I thought you were trying to get me to be quiet.
No, you're licking it.
You were about to get it, Bob. Okay, and then 10, you will get an email when your results are available to view it in the OHS Health portal.
Oh.
So that is as simple as it is. And it really is an easy way to get your test results. And to speak about the test results, I know we have once before, but let's go ahead, maybe 5 times before. Let's go ahead and discuss those test
So the
results.
difference is between when we discussed it before is we have the complete system created now to where the results come back into that portal that you registered for, and you'll get an email saying, hey, your results here. You'll click on it and it'll take you to that portal. That it's a HIPAA compliant private portal. So only you and your practitioner, if it was ordered to you by a practitioner, or just you if you went online and ordered it, you'll get those results. And again, the results will be there so that when you redo the test, it'll actually come side by side and you're able to have them right there. You don't have to go try to find the paper or anything like that. It'll be in that portal. And it'll also be in the portal that if you ever do Nutrients RX blood work, the blood work is there and you see that, and all of your tests can be in one place. And the test itself, as I mentioned, really measures 3 sizes of particles. And the smallest particle goes all the way down to 1 micron in size. It's very, very small. I don't know any test in the world that measures that small right now. And we got on a call yesterday with our top, PhD doctor, ND, Dr. Harris, along with the scientists that developed the test, and that's done in the Netherlands. And they were going back and forth. And man, it was just like the coolest thing because of how deep they were going and the ability we have right now to measure things. This is by far the best we have to be able to measure super small amounts of plastics, and then the desire and hope that we can even get to like nano-sized particles.
Okay,
But
so that's the one. What's the other? You're saying the different sizes.
so we have the super small side, which say small, medium, large.
Okay.
And obviously the large sizes are going to cause the biggest issues in
Okay,
the
that's an
bloodstream
issue.
and that. And the smaller ones are going to get into places that affect the mitochondria and that. So it's important to know all 3. But the reason I mention that is when you redo the test,
Mm-hmm.
right? And we're recommending that you get the test. And now we're recommending, we did the study off 45 days, but we're going 90 and saying, like, you do the test,
Oh, okay.
wait 3 months, redo it, and then when it comes back, let's say that overall the number went down, but maybe the large ones went up, and we have explanations to explain the good chance of what's happening in the body, that maybe some of these plastics that are in the organs the body couldn't get rid of because there was too much in the blood, and so
Oh,
maybe
okay.
for some people it goes up. And what the average is over 70% of the people that do the test just in 45 days are getting a pretty big reduction in plastics in their system. And there's a 30% of the people that actually the number either stays the same or goes up. And what we're finding is those that have so much accumulation the body couldn't get rid of it, with unless we start cleaning it out, then more can get into the system. And that's what part of the discussion was yesterday, is how that process could work. Because again, a lot of this is new and it's super exciting. But in your case, you actually had been on the Chemzyme and doing what we learned later were the things to lower plastics.
Yeah, but just the Chemzyme not very long actually.
Right.
So I hadn't been taking the Chemzyme, but maybe a month.
A month.
Yeah, I would say probably I had a good 30 days of
Which we were
Chemzyme.
finding that 30 to 45 was lowering it with a lot of people. Right?
Yeah, so on top of the Chemzyme, for years I've been a big proponent of the sauna.
Mhm.
I sauna almost daily, let's say 5 days a week.
Right.
And also I'm on the treadmill, so we have some pretty decent cardiovascular work that's going on,
Yep.
which is also contributing to sweat and
Yep.
cleansing
Sweat
the
is the
body,
key.
right? So those
And a cleaner diet.
and
than
a
the
cleaner
average bear,
diet, yeah,
Right.
yeah, a decently clean diet.
And so because of that,
Can you grab that?
most people's tests were coming back, and it was showing that on average people are right around anywhere from 30 to 50 particles, and that's when we need to do something about it. Yours came back.
I think it was 9.
Was it 9?
Or 15.
It was 9.
Yeah, I think it was 9
And
too.
mine was, it was higher.
Yeah, yours was. See, I want to brag, and now I can't even remember what the numbers were. But no, so what we've
Mine was
noticed.
higher, and I thought it was going to come back lower than Hilary's.
Yeah,
And
because your diet is even cleaner than my diet
during that
during
time
that
frame.
time frame.
And I think that what we found was, okay, what in the research shows the things that we can do to lower that plastics in the body. And we knew that the Chemzyme, the product that we had made, so Chemzyme is a supplement we made that we actually are the only ones in the world to have an enzyme called phthalate that digests the plastics, right? That digests phthalates in the system. And it's one of the major plastic problems that is, going around in the body. There's other forms of plastic in the body, and there's other nutrients that help with those things. But the main one was the fact that we're introducing for the first time ever this special enzyme. And so we know that the specific nutrients, resveratrol, glutathione, this phthalate help to reduce the plastics. We have great research on it, and with these tests now, even more. But then we found out that sauna was a lowering factor of the plastics.
Right. And with glutathione with me, I think also glutathione has always, from the
Big,
moment we came out with it, I've been on top of
right?
that one.
And then the third one um, is sauna, the supplements, and then fasting. That's what I was trying to think. Is that
Fasting.
fasting is a huge one because it allows the blood to go through cell autophagy and cleanse. And if there are other plastics, large tissues, then it'll come and the body can start working on them because it's now in the bloodstream. So those three things are what you can do for sure to lower the plastics. And so now we have the problem, which is undisputable,
Yeah.
right? We have it. We know that it's causing problems and they're real. And for a lot of people, it's just brain fog. It's just clarity, right? They're not getting that
Right.
clarity. And you can see with that much plastic in the brain, what would that would cause that. But then the what to do is what's so exciting is there's so many things in medicine that you hear like, hey, what do I do? I don't, just keep going and we'll measure it over time. Maybe, maybe something will happen and it won't go up, like cholesterol and that. There's not these, they don't give these answers when we know there's answers. And now we have them. And I think it's just huge for even going back to what you said at first that we all go through phases in life. And it might not even be the hormonal phases. It might be, stress because of family or finances or, taking care of people or people dying or different things. And we all are going to experience them, but it's how we are able to experience them and come out of it. Can we still function and still act daily like we need to the people around us and be able to enjoy life? That's the key. And I think that plastic plays a role.
Yeah, it plays a huge role. So what we can do, we can take the plastic test, find out just how much
Mhm.
plastics are in our daily life. Once we do that and send off our test or get those test results, we can be taking Chemzyme to help lower that number. Obviously, we can be sauning. We can be taking our glutathione. We can be fasting. Um, resveratrol, is that what you said
Yeah,
as well?
some of the other nutrients with that. And we'll try to put together a package eventually for that, that you
And
can get them all in one place.
and we can do our best to get fewer and fewer plastics in our life.
There's the other thing. And I think that is the key. And it is so overwhelming. And we'll kind of finish up before we wrap up with that because I have a lot of people that are saying, okay, once I start cleaning up the plastics and I'm doing this, I'm really in great shape. And you are. And we all should do this. But the reason that this should be an extremely high priority right now, and we're talking in April of 2025, why should this be a priority? Because the problem is getting worse
Mm.
and it's getting big time worse. And I'm going to explain why to you. And I'm going to actually read it so I hit it exactly right. There were scientists at the University of Edinburgh that found a way to turn plastics into something called vanillin. And, it's like, man, if we're going and we're learning enzymes to be able to break down the plastics, all these problems in the ocean, right? And everything. I'm like, this is the greatest thing in the world. But what's happening is that they're going, oh, how can we actually, profit from this instead of it just needs to happen because of the problems we've caused. And so they've been able to, and it's through an E. coli bacteria, and they're able to then digest and break down the plastic and convert it to vanillin. And they had a 79% conversion rate. They've increased it more. There's a designer named Eleonora Ortolani who took that and was able to take this vanillin and made ice cream from it instead of using vanilla and
Mm.
this chemical. And people couldn't tell the difference. And some people even liked it better because it was a little creamier and they have applied for FDA approval. Looks like they're going to get it. There's a good chance it's going to be in the market in the next 90 days, maybe, with more scrutiny, hopefully, that's there, that it would never come out, but I think it's going to come out because the amount of money that's behind it. And because they'll say, oh, we're helping the environment, we're getting rid of the plastics. And so they're going to get approval. But in all reality, I would say by the end of summer that the ice cream that you buy commercially, right, when you go and buy an ice cream cone, if you're getting vanilla ice cream cone, you're pretty much eating plastic. And that's what it is, it's plastic. So these numbers and these problems, I think, are going to get a lot worse, especially for those that don't measure, follow the protocols, and start doing everything they can to lower it.
Yeah. So we just need to start being even that more vigilant.
Vigilance the key, and make it from data. I think that in our world, there's a lot of people that use scare tactics to get people to do things, right? And I got that we all know we need to eat healthy and look, your risk of disease is up and all these things. And sometimes that's good because you're saying the truth. But a lot of times people will push supplements, snake oil salesmen, that type thing from, saying you just need to take this and it's going to cure this disease, or you need to do it because your risk, is really high if you don't. And I hate that. I'm really big, and as we are in the company at Optimal Health, and I know you personally and our family is really big on no, prove it. Like, do I really need this? And so we're big on data. And this is something that is such a, one of those things like, is it really a problem to me? It creeps up on us. And over the years, our disease rates going up, but it's this little bit at a time, kind of like the frog in the pot thing. It's a little bit at a time that we like question it. Like, is it really that big of a problem? And the answer is, I don't know, test, right? Find out for yourself.
Okay.
And then fix the problem. So super excited about that. You're going to see
You know
some
what?
really cool videos come out on this really soon.
Yeah,
So
I'm really excited. I know we're trying to finish up, but are there people that are more susceptible to plastics being an issue versus not? And is that a DNA factor or is it an epigenetic factor?
great question. So it's both. And the the genetic factor is that there are some things in the body called SNPs, right? Single nucleotide polymorphism, SNPs, that is just in your genetic code. And it makes it so that your cells and your mitochondria aren't as strong. And you're more susceptible to certain conditions, right? Some people are more susceptible because their parents had heart disease to heart disease,
Right,
like that
exactly.
thing.
Yeah.
And so, yes, some people are more susceptible to plastics than others, but even more important is what you just said, is epigenetics, that we control our genes more than our genes control us
Mm-hmm.
through our actions. And so what it can be for a lot of people is the buildup of the plastics because of the lifestyle. And some people, it's their job. Some people, we even talked to people like, hey, I've been just chewing on straws my whole life. That was my little habit, or different things like, you just built up because of being around it or habits. And that's a lot higher risk factor than the genetic risk factor. And that's the good news, because then we
Great
can
news.
fix it. So
Okay.
great question on that.
Awesome. Well, hey, great question. Great podcast. As always, this guy is Doug the Formulator.
And this is Miss Natural Olympia Hilary. Remember to subscribe, subscribe, and let us know what you think about these types of podcasts. We love to do more, because a lot of these come from our doctors, right? Like, we teach a seminar this weekend, and that we're like, hey, that actually was really cool, and maybe this is something that we could do on the podcast. So let us know. Appreciate you guys. See you later.